The marble floors of the Congressional chamber gleamed beneath the intense overhead lights, reflecting the tension that filled the room as former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi stepped up to the microphone, her expression unreadable, yet her calm presence commanded attention from media, politicians, and onlookers alike. Across from her sat Representative Jasmine Crockett, a rising political figure known for her sharp wit and bold rhetoric, yet on this day, her usual confidence flickered as Bondi adjusted the microphone and began with a simple but devastating statement: "Facts are not subject to your emotions, Congresswoman, and the American people are tired of being distracted by political theater." The air shifted perceptibly as Bondi, without raising her voice, proceeded to cite a meticulously documented timeline of congressional overspending linked to Crockett's recent initiatives, highlighting inflated contracts awarded to firms with questionable ties and travel expenses that ballooned beyond ethical norms, all presented with bipartisan audit data, not commentary. While Crockett attempted to interrupt, Pam raised one finger with graceful finality and continued, "We all support justice, but justice begins with transparency and truth, not slogans or shouting." The chamber, silent now, watched as Crockett's retort stumbled, her attempts to redirect the conversation faltering beneath Bondi's unrelenting precision and composure, culminating in a moment that would be replayed endlessly on media networks. Bondi calmly slid a stack of documents across the table and said, "Your office authorized these contracts, your signature is on them, and no press conference changes that reality." The gallery gasped not because of volume but because of clarity, an unimpeachable point made with professional grace. Within minutes, social media erupted, but not in Crockett's favor, as her carefully cultivated persona of fearless advocate began to crumble under scrutiny from both sides of the aisle, with journalists focusing less on ideology and more on evidence, which Bondi had brought in abundance. The 30-second clip of Bondi's rebuke hit 10 million views in hours, while editorials questioned the judgment of those who blindly supported Crockett's positions without review. Political analysts across major outlets agreed. The moment was not about partisanship but about preparation and command of facts. It wasn't a demolition by volume or insult, but a surgical deconstruction of arguments that lacked accountability, and Pam Bondi delivered it with an elegance that resonated with undecided Americans craving seriousness in a deeply divided landscape. Crockett, for her part, remained in her seat after the hearing, flanked by aides, silent, her phone buzzing non-stop as allies tried to regroup, but the tone had changed. Fundraising calls were suddenly ignored, invitations to primetime interviews rescinded, and even friendly anchors began pressing her for clarity she didn't have. That night, a senior member of her own party, speaking off the record, told a national outlet, "We love her fire, but she walked into a lion's den thinking it was a photo op." Bondi doesn't play games. Headlines the next morning were unrelenting. Pam Bondi's 30 seconds of truth, Crockett collapses under pressure, and "a career on the brink." Editorial boards emphasize that while mistakes happen, evasion and condescension toward facts are inexcusable, especially when presented so clearly. While Crockett's defenders attempted to label the moment as scripted political theater, their efforts were undermined by Bondi's documentation and the bipartisan nature of the facts she presented, leaving no room for accusations of trickery or manipulation. Within a week, key donors began backing away, influential advocacy groups distanced themselves from Crockett's recent initiatives, and even some loyal staffers quietly submitted resignations, unwilling to stake their future on a brand suddenly marred by unforced errors and undeniable ethical questions. The fallout was swift and merciless, not because of Bondi's tone, she never raised her voice, but because the power of unassailable facts, delivered with professionalism, stripped away the protective layer of partisan deflection that had shielded Crockett for years. In contrast, Bondi's reputation as a disciplined, formidable legal mind soared, with political commentators suggesting she just set a new standard for accountability in public hearings, prompting a renewed call from constituents nationwide for less spectacle and more substance. As days turned into weeks, Crockett's office issued defensive statements, tried damage control, and floated victim narratives, but none stuck because the public had already seen the truth, clearly and without distortion, in that 30-second clip that required no spin, only replay. The incident became a case study in political communication, taught in classes and dissected in podcasts, not because it was loud or flashy, but because it exemplified what can happen when a prepared expert calmly meets rhetoric with reality. Crockett's career, while not officially over, suffered a blow from which few recover in the brutal ecosystem of national politics, one where attention spans are short but viral moments, especially ones grounded in irrefutable truth, can be permanently defining. Bondi, on the other hand, didn't celebrate, she issued no gloating statement, gave no triumphant press tour, but quietly returned to Florida, her message having already done its work, her silence afterward only adding to the gravity of what she'd accomplished, a dismantling not just of a narrative, but of a political approach that underestimated the intelligence and expectations of the American public. As political winds shifted and new candidates began citing Bondi-level discipline as their benchmark for public conduct, the hearing that began as just another round of partisan spectacle came to symbolize a rare, sobering moment when preparation, truth, and professionalism prevailed over theater, and in doing so, it cast a long shadow, one in which Crockett's once bright star struggled to shine.